So, what the heck is a blue collar pro skateboarder? Um, I've talked a little bit about how I used to be a professional skateboarder, and I definitely consider that I was one, but not in the typical sense that I think a lot of people would think about a professional skateboarder. So I never had a skateboard with my name on it. I never had shoes with my name on it. Nothing like that. I didn't make my money through like endorsements or anything like that. I have made some money through contests, like I don't know, probably a couple $1,000s in my whole life, maybe through contests. I did compete at Slam City Jam in 1999, and Slam City Jam is the World Championships. I don't think it's around anymore. I don't think it's been around for a lot of years. But for a number of years, every single year there'd be the World Championships. It'd be one of the biggest contests of the year, and that was in Vancouver. And I went to that in '99, and I had a chance to compete against all of the top pros in the world. And I think I got 67th or something like that on street out of 175 pros. And I got 32nd out of 33 pros on vert. Uh, when it came to vert, man, they're like the only people that showed up were the absolute best of the best. Like I was competing against like Tony Hawk, like the best, right? Like so, it is what it is. But I definitely held my own on the street course. But the way I earned money, why I say I was a pro skateboarder, but I was a blue collar pro. So I made my money through show performing, and I sort of stumbled into that. So this is going back to around 1990-ish. There used to be a show in the region called the Welch's Wild Ones, and they had this big steel ramp they would put together. It was one of the worst steel half pipes I've ever seen. The design was terrible, but they had this ramp, and I saw them once. I believe it was out at a place called Prudhomme's Landing, and then I saw the Welch's Wild Ones at a parade in St. Catharines, I believe. And it was a team of skateboarders. There was a flatland BMX rider and a vert BMX rider, and they were sponsored by Welch's grape juice, right? So they were the Welch's Wild Ones, and they put on a show. And I always thought that was super cool. So I knew who they were. I knew that they were some local production. I think it was out of Toronto. Like I knew that it was kind of out of that area, and it was just like a local thing. I didn't know much more about it. And then in around, I think this would have been around 92, I won a bunch of contests back to back to back over a couple of weekends. And somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, my name's so and so. Here's my card." Handed me a card and said I work for a company called Rick Davis Promotions, and we're looking for some skateboarders. Do you skate vert? I've been watching at these contests, and you seem pretty good on ramps. And I said, yeah, I actually do skate vert. And he said, we're looking for a vert skateboarder for our show. Would you be interested? And of course, I said, yeah, love to. He said, okay, call Rick at the office on Monday. So I call this guy, Rick Davis, and I came to know Rick very well. Rick and I got along quite well. Rick is a gentleman with a giant head, and he was often called the Great Big Head. He used to be a DJ in Toronto back in the day, and his handle was Ranch House Rick. And then he became a promoter, and he would put together, like, he started an events company. So his company would put together everything from like, they would help organize the CNE, the Canadian National Exhibition. They would put on Markham Fair, things like that. And then he also had a bunch of shows he put together. So he had like a trampoline, like slam dunk basketball show he had put together. So he had show performers, and he would book these shows, like his performers all around at different shows. And he had this half pipe show. So he owned a warehouse, and in the winter he kept this giant like half pipe. So it collapsed down, but he kept this thing that was on a trailer at the time. And in the summertime, spring, summer, fall, he would book shows all over North America and send this ramp and a team. And I get hired. So my first show is at the Quinty Exhibition. And that's out in Belleville. And I go down to this exhibition, and there's this ramp, and I skate for the weekend, and it's a super cool experience. And I earned myself, I pocket around $600 for the experience. Not bad. And I loved it. And I showed up on time, and I just did my job, and I didn't get too drunk at night and like not show up like some of the people did. So Rick really liked me because I was responsible. I was 19 at the time when I started. I was a responsible guy. So he offers me another show and another show, and one thing leads to another. And the next thing you know, for the next 15 years, off and on, I'm touring. That's how I made my money. So I would get $200 per day, and you get a per diem. You get a $50 per diem. So the per diem was like to buy food or alcohol or whatever, and they paid for your transportation. We all traveled together on the road in a van with a huge truck, and the ramp was broken down in the truck, and we would build it up. So you got about 250 bucks a day. If you didn't spend, the per diem was in cash. So if you didn't spend it, you could pocket it, and you could actually come home with some of that money too. And then he would cut you a check at the end of the season or every like month, whatever you wanted. One year I waited until the end of the season. I think I got a check for around 50 to 60,000, if I remember correctly, for like, we're talking from May until October, right? And when I say I was a pro for a couple of reasons. Number one, I earned money skateboarding, and over the course of my skateboarding career, I probably earned at least like 150,000, maybe more than that, maybe 200,000 over the course of all that time. And number two, there were huge swaths of time, like half a year at a time, like maybe April till October in a number of years where that's all I did. I just skateboarded. Like that's how I earned my money. That's how I paid my rent. That's how I bought my groceries. I rode a skateboard. And it was the best experience of my life. I had the chance to travel all over North America. We did shows. We did State Fair of West Virginia. We did like State Fair in Michigan. We were the show at Canada's Wonderland for 2 different years for the season. So one year we were in the front, right when you come in through the front gates. We had a half pipe there for a week or so. And then another year we were in the main outdoor theater, and we were the show for 4 weeks, for a whole month. I was there just performing shows. And that was like a dream come true because I love Canada's Wonderland. I love all theme parks, by the way. I'm a roller coaster junkie. And the fact that I got to be a performer at Canada's Wonderland for a season was absolutely wonderful to me. I performed at Skydome. So this was for the Microsoft managers meeting. And you're probably like, what is that? They fly in all of the managers from around the world. So there was 30,000 of them, 30,000 people. That's why they used Skydome. It was crazy. And Pat Benatar, for all you young people, that's a very famous rock star. Pat Benatar played a concert for them. That's how much money Microsoft has. This was going back like 12 years too. And we performed in front of 30,000 people. And yeah, it was just for Microsoft employees, but like it was legit, man. It was a crowd. So I've performed in front of some enormous crowds. I've done a lot of TV shows too. Over the years, I've done some commercials and TV shows. So when I say I was a professional skateboarder, it's not in the route that most people would think, where you get a skateboard, you're a member of a company, like on a team for a skateboard company or shoes, and you travel around with the people from that company, and you have a skateboard that says your name on it, and kids buy it. I earned my money the hard way in some respects, and it was a weird kind of fame. That's the last thing I'd like to address. So, like, I remember State Fair of West Virginia, one of our shows was in front of about 20,000 people. That was like our biggest show. We had big crowds, but this Britney Spears was playing that night, and this was before Britney was Britney. Like she was coming up, but she wasn't like the Britney that we all know now. So there was a lot of people there that night, and we were at about an hour. Our show was about 45 minutes before Britney came on, so we had this just ocean of people. It was unbelievable. As far as the eye could see, they were watching us. And for the rest of the week, people are coming up to me. You're the guy. You're the skateboarder. Can I get your autograph? I probably signed like 1,000 autographs that week. But here's the messed up part. Nobody knew who I was. Like nobody was like, you're Ryan Brown. Like I was nobody. It's not like being famous like Tony Hawk famous, where people are like, oh, it's Tony Hawk, and they freak out, right? It was just like, you're that guy that was in the skateboard show, and I have no idea who you are or what your name is, but I know you were in the skateboard show, so I want your autograph. And it was weird because you'd have this fame, like while you're there at the venue, you'd be famous for the week. Like everybody be coming up to you and shaking your hand. Girls would be waiting after the show to talk to you. We'd be signing autographs for 20 minutes. And then I often would wonder, like, this kid goes back home and looks at his shirt or whatever I signed and is like, well, who's this guy? Like, who's Ryan Brown, right? Like, so it was weird because I would spend 6 months on the road where you kind of get used to that, right? You get used to all these people coming up to you, talking to you, wanting to meet you and shake your hand. And then I come home, and at the time, like, I was living in St. Catharines and Niagara Falls during around this time, and I come back home, and then it'd just be, just Ryan and my buddies be like, hey, what's up? How was your summer? And you go to the grocery store, and nobody, right? You go months, and nobody's like, hey, you're that guy. You're just nobody. You're back to nobody again. Like when Tony Hawk isn't on a skateboard, he's still Tony Hawk. People are still freaking out. It's Tony Hawk. So I would go from this weird level of like anonymity fame where people knew that I was the skateboarder but didn't even know my name or who I was. And in a way it's a bit insulting because they want to talk to you and like hang out with you and stuff, and girls are waiting to talk to you, but they don't know who you are. They just want to do that because then they grab a little bit of that, right? They can say like, I hung out with like the skateboarder guy or the BMX guy from that show at the state fair, right? And it was weird. It was weird, but at the same time, it was cool, and we had a great time. We partied a lot, like we drank a lot. A lot of those per diem dollars went to booze, but that's okay. I was young, I had a lot of fun, and I wanted to live it up. I wanted to live that lifestyle. I wanted to like feel like a rock star, even if I wasn't one in reality. It was great. We would just spend months on the road, living out of a backpack, traveling hotel room to hotel room, get to the event, spend a day. It would take us 8 hours, the team. We'd build the ramp up, this big vert ramp, and then we'd do shows for a weekend, 7 days, 15 days, depending on what the event was. A state fair would be longer, a smaller event would be shorter. Then we'd tear the ramp down. We'd put it in this 40-foot rider truck, and then off we go. We drive across country. We could be in West Virginia one day, and then a week later we're in Iowa, and we're just all over the place. And it just goes like that for months on end. And then you get paid to do this, and it's great. The one thing I will say is it gets monotonous. They don't tell you what tricks to do, thankfully, right? You could do whatever tricks you want, but the shows were structured, right? There'd be like 3 or 4 runs, and usually there was sometimes like a little theme to it. Like we had one where like it was called the Dick Tracy Show, and our announcer would dress up kind of like Dick Tracy, like a detective, and we'd be skating the ramp, and then he would come running out, and we'd all hide on the decks of the ramp, and he'd be like, hey, you've seen some skateboarders and bikers and rollerbladers around here, and all the crowd would be pointing to the top of the deck, right? So some of it was choreographed. You could do whatever you wanted, but usually the show became this kind of like, warm-up run, next runs get a little bit better, announcer comes out, hypes up the crowd, and then next runs a little bit better, and then we go into like doubles routines. So we all had to have doubles routines. I usually did it with like, because I was a skateboarder, I would do it with the BMXer and the inline skater, and often the inline skater, like rollerblader, and I would mirror tricks. So we would drop in and do airs together, then we would do a hand plant together. So we would do, because we were both like a similar sort of style where the BMX is very different. And then BMX, I would often just do like some grinds around the ramp, and he would be doing huge airs over me. So then we go into like doubles runs and stuff like that. And then you'd have this big finale run where they'd hype the crowd up. And sometimes I would like bail my last run. If I could tell the crowd was really hyped, I would like throw a bail on my last run, on my last trick, and like really exaggerate it, like fall out of the air like it was like the hardest thing. And I'd pick myself up and I'd be like, one more, just give me one more. And the crowd would start to cheer, right? So a lot of this too, you learn, you're a showman, and you have to learn how to hype the crowd up. You have to learn how to, it's not just skateboarding or biking, right? It's like performing. It's a performance, and you're there to hype the crowd up. And I'd crawl back to the top of the ramp, and then I'd be like, come on, getting them, and they'd all be cheering. But then the pressure's on, right? Now you got to land that last trick because you've hyped this up so big, right? Yeah, it was great. I had a great time. It was wonderful. I in a way, I didn't get to be the pro skater I always wanted with my name on a board, but in a way, I got to be a pro skater still and know what it was like to tour around and live off of money that I earned from skateboarding. And over the years, I had lots of sponsors, so I always got free stuff. I had great sponsors. I rode for Downtown Skateboards and Axis Skateboards and Furious Styles Clothing and Rex Shoe Systems. Um, a company called Hat Tricks. They were a clothing company. So I always had like sponsors. I always got boards and clothing and all that stuff for free and shoes. Like I didn't have to buy that stuff. But in terms of having my name on any of that stuff, just didn't happen. That's okay. Had a great time, and yeah, that's what I meant when I said I was a blue collar skateboarder. So yeah, I don't think a lot of people know about that sort of side of skateboarding, but it's there. There are people that just go out there and do demos, and I was lucky enough to be one of them.